Hello, and thank you for joining me again today on the Finding Hope After Loss podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. You can really help the show reach more loss and infertility families by taking a moment to leave a positive review or rating on Apple or Spotify. Check us out on Patreon for exclusive bonus content. Just go to patreon.com/Finding Hope After Loss. You can also check out more information about the episode in the show notes at journeyforjasmine.com. Today I am talking with Ashley. She talks about her journey through IVF and the child loss of her son Luke due to unexpected heart surgery complications. She also opens up about her grief, parenting living children after loss, and how her organization Luke's Purpose supports other lost families. Hello everyone, today I am here with Ashley. Ashley, can you tell us a little about yourself?
Hi, yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. So, my name is Ashley. I live in New York on Long Island. I work in advertising technology. I've been at my current company for about 4 years. I have 3 children. I have a daughter, Amelia, who is 7. My son, Luke, he passed in 2022, and he would have been 6 this coming October, but he passed away just a few days before his 3rd birthday in 2022. And I just recently had another daughter, Vivian. She's going to be 1 in just a few weeks. So last year we welcomed her to our family. So 2 girls here with us, and our son, of course, he passed. So yeah, that's pretty much a little bit about me. I've been married to my husband for about 10 years. We have 2 very crazy dogs. But yeah, I like to, just kind of hang out in my free time, which I don't ever have free time. But when I do, I really just like to sit.
I do like that question. Like, what do you do in your free time? I'm like, what's free time?
When you ask like working mom, what do you like to do in your free time? What are you talking? I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what you're talking about. Free time, I like to, use the bathroom in peace. Like I like
By yourself without
I like
anybody
to
knocking on the door.
eat a meal by myself. Yeah, like that's my free time. Yeah.
I know. It's that or I stay up way too late after everybody goes to bed, like
Yeah.
trying to read my book or doing whatever, and then I'm extra tired, but then I don't stop doing it. I'm like, I do
Yes,
this to myself. I don't know.
exactly. Right. And then you wake up the next morning and you're like, okay, I stayed up too late binging whatever TV show. Tonight I'm going to go to bed really early. And then that never happens
Yeah, I
because
know that I stay up
it's
again.
just
I'm
the
like, why?
vicious cycle of what we do.
Because it's like the only
Exactly.
time we get to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. Yeah.
So, do you mind sharing a little about your lost journey?
Yeah, of course. So my son Luke was born October 16th, 2019. Perfectly healthy little boy. I will start. So let me go back. My daughter Amelia is 7, and we conceived her via IVF. So we were having a bit of trouble just conceiving on our own, which was pretty unexpected because, I was young, I was healthy, we had just got married. Like I wasn't expecting any, trouble getting pregnant. So after a year or so of trying, we decided to go to a fertility doctor, and I conceived her via IVF. And I have a fully blocked tube and then a partially blocked tube. So he said like there's such a slim chance that you could get pregnant on your own. IVF would be the best option for you. And, so we decided to move forward with it. So I conceived her. And 8 months later, I got pregnant on my own with Luke, my son, who we were, of course, so happy and excited about that. We were able to have him, we were able to conceive him totally unexpected. So we were just so thrilled. And he was born again October 16th, and the kids were, 15 months apart. They were so close in age. It was crazy. 2 under 2, like to both of them in diapers, just like it was such like beautiful chaos. Like it was amazing. He was diagnosed at 9 months old. We went for his well check at 9 months, and they had heard a heart murmur. So pretty common, the pediatrician didn't really seem too concerned about it, just she didn't really know what it was. She just heard it. So she suggested that we follow up with a pediatric cardiologist, which of course we did. And then he was diagnosed with something called subaortic membrane stenosis. So basically, he was just growing a little bit of scar tissue in near his heart, and it wasn't restricting any blood flow at that point, but because the scar tissue would eventually start building up and growing a bit more, the cardiologists, of course, told us to come back every year to monitor him. And eventually, the scar tissue probably would build up to the point where he would need surgery to go in and remove the scar tissue. But no cause for concern at all during that initial appointment. And, we didn't have to change anything with his lifestyle. Like everything was fine. He was growing, he was hitting his milestones, everything was fine. So again, we continued on with our life. Everybody was growing. The kids were thriving. He was hitting his milestones. We continued to go back every year for a checkup. And so he was born in 2019. So the summer of 2022, we went for that checkup, that yearly checkup. And that was when the cardiologist had said, the scar tissue has just grown a bit too much now. So now would be a good time to go in and remove that scar tissue so he just could breathe a little bit better, blood flow a little bit better. And we, of course, were freaking out like any other parent would, but the surgeon was pretty confident that, it was a very quick procedure. It was about 90 minutes. They didn't even have to go through his chest. They could go under his arm. So he wouldn't even need really like open heart surgery. It was a very quick procedure. He would be home in, 2 days, all that. So of course we were very scared and nervous, but hearing that we were like, okay, it won't be as intense and as invasive as, a heart surgery. So we scheduled his surgery for October 12th of that year. And unfortunately, he ran into some pretty unexpected complications that were just unexpected. We'll just say that. And he ended up in the hospital for a few more days, and he was on ECMO because he at some point needed another surgery, so he went in for his surgery. There were complications. He needed another surgery during that time. They had to open up his chest, go back in and sort of repair something. And his body was just so little and couldn't handle it really, really all of that on the stress and the ECMO, it was keeping him stable, but ultimately, he did pass away from those complications, not from his condition, from the complications 2 days later, which was October 14th, which was 2 days before his third birthday. That's when he passed.
So it's just so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you heard about that, or when he was diagnosed with that, had you ever heard of that condition before?
No, never. I was not familiar at all with, heart world. I know there's a lot of groups that, Heart Mom World and all of that. We were familiar with nothing. So we really were just totally shocked. Nobody in our family has any heart conditions, nothing like that, nothing major like that. So, it was a shock to us, but the confidence and the calmness that the cardiologist had and the surgeon had was helpful because, and even people that once we got thrown into this sort of heart world, the CHD world, a lot of people who had been in it for years, a lot of the times when you're pregnant, you go and get like your anatomy scans, and often they can pick up on heart conditions prior, while you're pregnant, and that didn't happen. So, when I sort of joined this community, a lot of people knew of the condition. So I kind of, felt a little bit better that I had a little bit of a community to go to, and everybody said the same thing. This is such a common diagnosis. The surgery is so common. It's easy. I even had like pediatricians say like, this is one of the easiest surgeries ever. And I'm like, okay, it's easy. A surgeon is telling me it's easy, so it must be okay. But unfortunately, that just wasn't the case. So
Well, and I'm guessing with everybody saying that, I mean, you never expected that this would be the outcome, right?
exactly. Right. Exactly. Never in a million years. I mean, there were, of course, before we went into the surgery, the surgeon was like, we run into we run into, maybe he might be here for another day, see how he recovers. There's always a chance of, a little bit of blood loss, maybe but nothing would prepare us for him to pass away. Like it wasn't even a question like that could happen. So
Have you ever met anybody else who has a child that passed away from the same thing?
not from the same thing, but after he passed away, I started connecting more with parents who had children who had heart conditions that had passed away. So more and more as the years have gone, I am realizing how common not his condition was, but just how common heart conditions are, and how, in depth they can be, and how just devastating they can be. A lot of these kids do pass away sometimes, so it's really, really hard. So as much as when it happened, we felt so alone, but we're not alone. Like, this does not that it happens often, but it does happen, enough that there's a community that it happens to.
So it seems like with the CHD community that
Mhm.
it doesn't matter what kind of heart condition it is, like they kind of all
Yeah.
rally together, I guess.
Come together, rally together. Yeah. I mean, like I said, like, there's kids who were diagnosed with heart conditions while mom was pregnant. So, like, immediately they would need surgery, like, as the baby's born. And when Luke got diagnosed with his condition, I almost felt like an outsider, because I'm like, well, he's not really a heart kid. He's not really part of this, because he doesn't, he wasn't diagnosed as a baby. We're just here for a quick surgery. It's not, he doesn't even need, they don't even need to open his chest. Like, you know what I mean? We felt so, like, it was nice to have some kind of a community, but I also didn't really feel like we fit in there either, because he wasn't living his life with this condition. It wasn't affecting his life, I should say. Like, it wasn't affecting his quality of life. He was perfectly healthy. So
Did they say if the surgery had been successful, like would he have had to have had more surgeries in the future?
that really would have just depended on the growth of the scar tissue. I mean, the plan was to go in, remove the scar tissue, and then, remove as much as they could. And then if it were to grow back in a few years from then they would probably have to, open him up and go back in again. But the goal was to remove all of the scar tissue, and then hopefully he would never need another surgery ever again. But, we don't, would have never known that. So
Can I ask if you got support from family and friends?
we did. Yeah, of course. And after, I think, because the his passing was so unexpected, I think even in the hospital, like, the nursing, the staff there, like, of course they were not even expecting it. You know, I they were so compassionate towards us, and they even came to his funeral. They were really, I think, really truly moved by us, and, the what had happened, because it was so unexpected. And I don't know if that happens often. Like, I don't know if the nursing team goes to children's funerals who pass. I would imagine, they see this happen frequently in children's hospitals, emergency cases or not, whatever. I imagine that they probably have to keep a very professional space on, and not take it personally. So the fact that they came to his funeral, it meant a lot to us, because I know that, they'll probably remember him, for a while. And, this the impact that he made there, that he was there. We did get a ton of support from our friends and family. I mean, we were never alone in our house, especially those first few months. my husband and I, we both took time off of work. And at the time, my daughter Amelia was 4. So we wanted really to keep her life as normal as possible, this new normal, right? So I went and told her teachers, her daycare teachers, her preschool teachers, whatever. I kept her in school. I wanted her to be around kids. I wanted her to just have this playtime, to be around friends, because at home, it was so dark here. It was so empty here. The house was just not the same. And I wanted her to have some kind of joy in her day. She's only 4 years old, so I tried to keep her life as normal as I could. But yeah, we got a lot of support from our friends and family. I mean, they really rallied for us. They sent us food like every single night, sent us groceries, sent us gifts, memorial gifts with his name on it. They would visit him at the cemetery. It was, we needed a lot of support, and we didn't even know what we needed. People were like, what do you need? I don't have no idea. I want my son back. Like, that's what I need. But you can't do that, right? That's what I need. And the best thing, I think, to help a grieving parent is really just being there, like just sitting and listening, and even not even saying anything, just sitting and just saying, if you want to talk, if not, if you want to cry, so that was really helpful.
I know your daughter was only 4 at the time, but did she understand what had happened?
I don't know. I mean, I we didn't even really know how to explain it to her. I grew up Catholic, talk about heaven, that's sort of what we believed. And up until, Luke passing away, I had lost my grandparents, not that that's not a loss, of course it is, but it's just the way it's supposed to happen, right? It's not like a traumatic, out of order loss. Your grandparents pass away when they're old and they've lived this beautiful life. So she had never really been exposed to death before, ever. She was a baby when my grandparents passed away, so she doesn't even remember. But we sat her down and we said, the social worker at the hospital was like, you should use the word dead, died, dead. Like, you should say it. And I was like, I can't even say that word. I can't even say, like, my son is dead. Like, I hated to say it. So we spoke to her and we sat her down, and I did quickly realize that I didn't have any kind of, I had no idea how to help her. So we found a counselor for her pretty quickly after he passed away, to help her navigate her feelings as a 4-year-old. It's, as an adult, it's so different. We can, I like to say, like, we can we can regulate our emotions, and we can, but as a child, it's so different. We explained to her that, Luke was, I wanted to use my words carefully, because I didn't want to say that Luke was sick and he went to heaven, because I didn't want her to think if she got sick, like a cold, that she would go to heaven, or if I got sick with a cold. So we wanted to kind of explain to her that the level of sickness, like, he was very, very, very sick. Like, his heart didn't work and he had to go to heaven, because he couldn't live here anymore with us. He was just too sick. So, but the therapist really helped her, and it helped us too. It helped us at home with her, how to navigate her grief too.
Yeah, I think it's hard. My son was 3 at the time that we lost Jasmine, and so we tried
Yeah.
to explain it, the best we could, but he didn't fully understand what
Yeah.
had happened. So,
Yeah.
and we're over here trying to just navigate our own grief, not knowing what to do,
Exactly.
and it's so hard to know what to do for them too.
Exactly. Did your son, like, I remember Amelia, I remember telling her, and she was just like, not that she was okay with it, but she was like, okay, like, right? Like,
Yeah, no, he was like,
okay,
"Okay,
yeah.
can we play now?"
Yeah, exactly. Like, it was just like, okay. And then we went to sleep the next day, and then she was just like, what do I do now? What are we doing today? So I think there's so little. Maybe it's, I hate to say this, but maybe it's a blessing that they were so little when this happened, because not that I don't want her to remember her brother, because of course we still talk about him and we still, have pictures up of, his room is still up and everything. He will always be our son, her brother, but I'm hoping that maybe she doesn't remember like the traumatic part of it, like this part of it.
I found that as my son has gotten older, that he'll ask more
Mhm.
questions about it or express, more
Okay.
emotions
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know that he necessarily remembers like the whole trauma part of
Right.
it, but he's
Right.
definitely more
Right.
curious.
How old is he now?
He just turned 11.
Okay. Yeah. She's 7 now. So I'm not there yet. I feel like she's still, I mean, it's only been 3 years. So I don't know. I'm sure the questions will come probably when she is a little bit older, like what really did happen? What exactly
Yeah.
happened? Why was he so sick? I'm sure all of these will come up and I'm happy to explain to her. I'm happy to tell her the truth. I just think, you want to protect their little hearts too. They're so little at 4 years old. You don't want to sit there and be like, your brother died. That's not what you want to say to a little baby. So it's, I think a really tough part about child loss, a parent losing a child, is also raising the living children that you have. It's so, it's a huge part of it. And it's not to compare, obviously, parents lose their only child. And of course, all of it is devastating and traumatic, but it's different. It's different, and I was in groups with parents who had lost their only child. And they would say, some days we just don't get out of bed. Some days we just sit there and we cry. Some days we don't even eat. Or some days we just sit by the TV and do nothing. And I was like, I remember thinking like, oh my God, I just want to do that. I just want to sit and cry and sit there and not do anything and not eat and not take care of another person. But we had to, my husband and I, we had to wake up every single day and take care of our daughter. So, but then on the flip side, those parents were like, you have another child, you have the motivation to get up. And it's you're not comparing, but it's like you'll never understand anybody else's situation. Like, of course we have the commonality of losing a child, unfortunately, but no loss is greater than another. No situation is greater or worse than the other. So it's just different. It's just all
Yeah.
different.
It
Yeah.
is. And I felt the same way. Like I had a hard time being present sometimes
Yes.
for my son.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I feel
Mhm.
like a bad mom because now
Right.
I'm like, but you're trying to grieve, but you don't have time to grieve because you have to.
Yep.
So I feel like it really does affect your grieving process.
Yep. Yep. It's so true. I remember the night we got home from the hospital, Amelia was already in bed and we came home later, and I mean we were sobbing. Like it was horrible. And then we woke up the next morning to her like 7 a.m. and she's like, are you gonna make me breakfast? You know what I mean? Like it was just like a normal day for her. Like the next day came, she didn't understand, like, okay, my brother just died, but I'm hungry, mom. Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? So
Right.
we had moments where, of course, like our family would come and say, like, okay, we'll take Amelia for a night. We'll take her so you guys can do whatever. But the day to day is just, it was hard. It was hard. So
Yeah. I mean, you have to basically just go back to your normal routine, like nothing
yep,
happens while in
yep,
your head, you're like, oh my gosh, my world just like blew apart.
blew up. Yeah, exactly. Yep, yep.
Did you have to go back to work pretty quickly or were you able to get time off?
I think I was home for about 4 months. I think I went back in February. So October, November, December, January, February. It was about 4 months I was home. My husband went back sooner than I did. I think he was home for about 2 months. And then I went back in February. So, I mean, both of our jobs were so understanding. I mean, how, I hear stories of people's workplaces, like, saying, like, you got to come back in like a week, like 2 weeks. It's a nightmare because they just, or there's parents who can't afford to take time off and to grieve. They get their bereavement days of 4 or 5 days, and then they have to go back because they can't. It's horrible. So yeah, we were home for a bit, and we just every day we just tried to put one foot in front of the other. We just tried so hard to just we literally took it one day at a time. I didn't, and even like I remember back then, people would say, literally take it one, don't even think about tomorrow. Even if you have to take it like 1 minute at a time, like just focus on the minute, focus on the day. And it's now looking back, it's really, really good advice. Like it's so true. Like I still to this day don't even look too far into the future. Like some days I'm like, oh my God, like his birthday is coming up. I'm going to be so sad. Just leave. You don't know that. You don't even know that. Like leave the future in the future. Don't even think about it right now. Just one day at a time.
And I found too that every year when it reaches her birthday, I feel a little differently. Not that I'm not always like
Yeah.
sad, but it's
Mhm.
just sometimes I'll be sad at different times, like the time leading up to it, or sometimes the day itself is hard, or
Yep.
sometime after.
Mhm.
Have you noticed that at all?
Definitely. Definitely. And some years, his birthday coming up this year is the third birthday that he hasn't been with us. So I remember like I remember thinking that first holiday season. So he passed away in October, and I remember that first Thanksgiving and Christmas. I remember talking to all of these lost parents, and they were like, Christmas is the worst time of the year. It's the worst. It's horrible. You're going to have a heart. And I'm like, okay, I have to have a really bad Christmas because, my son is dead, and there's no way I'm ever going to enjoy the holidays ever again. And then the holidays came, and it wasn't as triggering as I thought it would be. Like it was still very, very sad, but I was like, okay, I survived this. It was random other days that were harder, random days, the days leading up to the holidays were harder than the actual holiday itself. You know, Mother's Day the following year was so hard for me, but it changes every year. Every year it feels different. And I always remind myself that these days, right now, I'm just surviving them. So, however, I have to survive them, if that's, forgetting that the day exists. If it, I didn't put my Christmas tree up. I put it up last year for the first time. And it felt so good to do it. So, who know? I don't know how I'm going to feel again this year. Like maybe I don't want to do it again. I don't know. So, I think each year is different. Each birthday is different. Each milestone is different. And then sometimes I get triggered in the grocery store, like just like a random thing. So, but that's grief, right? It's so tricky. It's not linear. It's very surprising. It comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. Just like the
Yeah.
things that I think will be triggering, I end up being
Mhm.
okay. And then something completely random over here, I'm like, well,
Yeah.
didn't expect that,
Yeah. 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 I definitely get more triggered with like stuff at school, like events at school, play dates, like being around other kids, that's definitely hard for me. But especially like for Amelia too, she gets really upset when she sees like other kids with their siblings. I mean, we had Vivian last year, so really before we had her, but she went really one day from being best friends with her brother to nothing. So I know with her grief, like she gets really upset when, we're just hanging out at home and, she doesn't have her sibling there with her. And then like all her friends who have brothers and sisters, they have, at least somebody to play with at home. So that's still really hard for her. But yeah, like random stuff at school, that's pretty triggering, just seeing. I think the things that people take for granted are super triggering for me too. Like the little things, like parent teacher conference night. Like, yeah, it's a pain in the butt, I'm sure, but you get to go, like you get to have one, right? So that stuff's hard. That stuff's tough.
Do you do anything for his birthday?
I never did. I think because his passing day and his birthday are 2 days apart, I always feel this just really horrible darkness and sadness around the day, and it just sort of overlaps with his birthday. I haven't brought myself to do like a cake or a candle or anything like that. I'm just still just sad about it. Like I still can't do it. I mean, we've done things to honor him. We started a foundation for him. I have a garden for him. I myself go out to Montauk every year. I've done that so far every year, just by myself. I take some time around his birthday. I just go out there and I just cry or sit outside and have a drink. It's just time for me to like collect myself and let it out and, just connect with him. And I always navigated like to the beach and to outside, that's where I felt him the most. So I like to do that, but never did anything for his birthday. Not yet, at least, not yet.
But I think that is doing something, just,
Yeah, I
but
guess.
I get
Yeah.
what you're saying, but it
Yeah,
may not be something like, here's physically this, but it's you spending
you're
time with
right.
them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, I guess it is something. I should say, like, we haven't done something like a celebration. I don't know. I just
Yeah.
don't feel like celebrating yet because he's not here. It's
Yeah.
so hard to celebrate. So, but we'll see. Maybe that'll change. I mean, grief, it changes so much. Like every day is different, every year is different. So, like I said, last year was the first year I put up the tree, and I mean, I wanted to do it, but I think again, Amelia was like, "Why don't we have our Christmas tree up?" And I'm like, I can't take away your childhood because of our loss. Like that's not fair to you. And now to Vivian, like I can't not give you a Christmas or a birthday party or whatever it may be because Luke is not here. Like, yes, he's not here, but you are here. Yeah.
That's really hard too, just to
Yeah.
navigate all of that of, each child is separate,
Yes.
and sometimes that's hard because it can run together.
Yes. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
So you said you started a foundation?
Yeah, we did. It's called Luke's Purpose. We started it pretty quickly after he passed away. Again, I was home from work and I was just like pacing the walls, like literally. Like I was so sad. I had to do something. And so we started a foundation called Luke's Purpose. And after Luke died, we talked about like our friends and family helping. And what we weren't expecting from his passing was the financial cost of everything that came up. I don't think any parent really expects that, especially when the death itself is unexpected. A lot comes with it, unfortunately, and financial stuff is included in that. So we were not expecting, a funeral bill, a cemetery bill, medical bills, like all of these things were shocking to us. So while we were literally not breathing because our son just died, we had to pay these bills. It was a disaster. So our family and community, they like really rallied for us and they put it together a GoFundMe, which was so helpful. And, I remember like before Luke had died, I was like, what parent is going to want money? Like money isn't going to bring their kid back. And now I'm like, this makes sense, like because they probably have 100 bills that they weren't expecting. I never knew how expensive funerals were and how expensive cemetery plots were. And Luke died and we wanted now to get our plot right next to him. We wanted to be with him. We wanted to set that up. So we were able to take care of all that because of the help that we had received. So we decided to give it back. And we decided that the foundation that we were going to start was going to support lost families with the financial burden that comes with child loss. So we connect with hospitals, social workers, the community here in New York. We've spread pretty far out into like tri-state area, but we're starting to spread a little bit further. And we basically just take as much as the financial burden away from the families as we can. So the social worker, it's pretty easy. We connect with the social worker and they send us the bill and we just take care of it. We just like, we try really hard not to contact the parents, believe it or not, because we don't even want them to think about it. Like we don't even want them to use the energy to worry about that. Like we know that there's so much to do and so much going on and so much grief and loss. Like the last thing that they want to do is look at a bill. So we just take care of that for them. So that's our main goal at Luke's Purpose. And then separately, we try to connect parents with resources as well. So Cope, like, how Danielle started, that's on our resource page, and, just other groups around the area. And we try to, there's sibling loss on there too, because as we know, we needed help for Amelia. So parents have other children, of course, if they do. So we have some resources there as well if they need some help connecting with that.
I think that's such an amazing thing because at first you think like,
Yeah.
okay, money, like, that doesn't help. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think, like you said, any of us ever expected to have those bills come. It seems
Yeah.
unfair to have to pay when your child died.
I would imagine that funeral directors and these people probably hate giving parents this bill. Like I would just imagine, I have to believe that they hate it. And I understand it's a business. It's just got to be like the most gut-wrenching thing to have to say to a law. I mean, I remember we went to the cemetery, 2 days later after he died to pick out his plot, and the funeral director was like, this is how much it's going to cost. Like you could tell, like he didn't even want to tell us. Like he didn't even want to tell us. And we were like, oh my God, this is highway robbery. Like, what are you guys doing? It's crazy. Like it's really, really crazy. So a lot of the families that we help, they come from a pretty tough financial situation already. So, the fact that we can help them with this so they don't even have to worry about it, it's bittersweet, because we're happy to help, but I kind of wish we didn't have to. I kind of wish we didn't exist. I kind of, it's like we can't erase child loss. I wish I could every day, but if I could just help out in this way, it is helpful. It really is. So.
So I know you said you don't typically like try to contact the families, but do they know that your foundation took care of it? Like, do they
Yes,
know that
yeah.
part?
So they'll know that it's Luke's Purpose, and I'll always say after, everything is taken care of, I'll say like if they want to contact us directly when they're ready, if the mom wants to reach out to me just to say, I'm a lost parent too, like they need somebody to talk to. I mean, you probably know the only people that understand are the people who have been through it. And I remember going to our grief group where we met other lost parents, and I remember like saying to myself, these people are going to think I'm crazy because the thoughts that I have, like they're going to think I'm crazy. And then the people in our group were saying the same things that I was thinking, and I'm like, wait, you guys feel the same way? Like you have these thoughts too. So there's so much community, and I think that's really what helped my husband and I too really, really help us move forward, is really connecting with other lost parents.
And do you have like a website or anything that people could look at or
Yeah,
social media?
luke'spurpose.org. Yeah, it's luke'spurpose.org, and then we're on Instagram at Luke's Purpose, and Facebook. I post pretty frequently on there, just updates and fundraisers and events and all stuff that we have, and then all of the information is on our website.
So is there anything else that you'd like to share, add about anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, grief is, just it's a lot, I mean, losing a child is, and I hate when people say like things happen for a reason. Like there's no reason for this, right? And again, this is the only loss, a parent losing a child that like it doesn't, this is not the way it's supposed to happen, right? It's not supposed to happen this way. It's not in the right order. So yes, like, losing a parent, losing a spouse, losing a close friend, like these are all painful losses. Like no one is doubting that. But I think when a parent loses a child, it's such a different magnitude of loss. Like it's so different. I feel like we're in our own category, like of loss, and the only people that get it are the people that have been through it. And every day is different. There's definitely moments of joy for sure. Like I think from the beginning, my husband and I, like, we really promised ourselves, like, we're still going to live. We're still going to continue moving forward. We're still going to live for us, for him, for Amelia. We had another baby after last year. We had Vivian, and, she's just been such a joy to have too. And again, I think another part is, having another baby after loss does not replace the loss. Like that's another thing, it's not, we didn't have her because we lost Luke. We had her because we always wanted to grow our family and always have more kids. And people, I think the misconception is, you lose a child and you have another one, it replaces the grief, and it doesn't. Your grief is always going to be there. There's always going to be your loss, your grief. Having another baby or anything that brings you joy, it just adds joy. It doesn't take away the grief. It's just adding more joy to your life. There's one picture that I always remember. It's the jar with the ball of grief in it. The ball never gets smaller. The jar can get bigger. The jar can fill with joy and happiness and moments and, living your life. But the grief will never go away. The grief will always be there. So that was another challenge for us, having a baby after, Luke died. And I think, after the years have gone by, it's just people think like, oh, you have another baby, so you're happy again, you're fine again. And it's like, no, I'm not. I'm never going to be okay, So that's another challenge in itself.
Yeah, I found there's just so many things that come up even years later that,
Yeah,
ways that you've changed or new challenges or new grief or just, yeah, it's like the gift that keeps on giving, never ending.
exactly. Right. And it's a weird gift because it's, what's the quote? It's like grief is just love with nowhere to go or something like that. And it's true because, there's so much love for your child. It's almost like you want to feel that for the rest of your life because you know that it won't always feel like pain. It'll feel like love. It'll feel like light. Like you'll just feel it. You'll feel the grief in all of its forms. So you don't want it to go away. Even on the hard days, it's like, it it's just reminds you that they were here, that they lived, that they were your child. They always will be. So you don't it just takes different shapes, it takes different forms. We're coming up on 3 years since he's passed, and it's again, the grief is always there, but it's not right here like all the time anymore. It's shifted. It's moved to maybe the side, which is good, because we do want to enjoy our life and we want to show our girls, like, in the face of tragedy, like you can still have a good day. It's okay. It's okay to feel that way. And I know there's that book, It's Okay to Not Be Okay or whatever, but it's also okay to be okay. Like you're allowed to have a good day. You're allowed to have a good moment. You're allowed to feel happiness, because if you're allowing yourself to feel the anger and the sadness, you should also allow yourself to feel the joy and the happiness, because you can hold both together. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to do that. So my hope is that, especially when we connect with the parents, lost parents, that a lot of the times, and maybe they ask you too, when you've been in your grief for, quite a few years, a lot of people would say, like, does it get better? Does it get easier? You're losing a child. It's never going to get easier, right? It's never going to get easier to live without them. You just kind of change and you kind of change shape and you just kind of welcome different happiness and different joy. So it doesn't get easier, it just gets different, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I say too. I totally
Yeah.
agree with that. It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
the grief doesn't go away. We just learn to live with it and grow with it.
Exactly.
It's just
Right.
there, kind of like sitting
Right.
on your shoulder and
Yep.
everything that you do. So,
It's so true. Yep. It's so true.
well, I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for sharing your story with us. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. If you like the show, please leave a positive review or rating on Apple or Spotify. It only takes a moment and really helps the show reach more loss and infertility families. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, we are all in this together.